the person who might want to buy a car but doesn't want to talk to the salesperson.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Impulso podcast by Momentum Works. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that's been requested by a couple of you, which is actually electric vehicles, and specifically Chinese EVs, right? Mm-hmm. So we were looking at the annual sales of EVs in China about a couple weeks back, and it was quite interesting, right? So this is the annual sales of cars in China, right? And the top is BYD.
Okay. 3.4 million cars.
3.4 million cars, yeah. Second is...
And second and third are still international brands, right? Volkswagen and Toyota.
I was going to ask, what is 大众?
大众 is Volkswagen.
I think we had this, like, Volkswagen is a common kind of like family car.
Do you know what
or
Volkswagen actually means in German?
Car.
Like people's wagon.
Oh.
Of course you have Toyota, but what is interesting is the trend. So BYD grew by 43% year on year. That's actually significant growth because the whole market is probably not
growing that much,
or even growing at all. I think then Toyota and Volkswagen, which I mean they are still significant, but if you look at the growth, they are both in decline, 4.9% and 4.1% respectively. Number 3 would be Geely. That's a Chinese brand. And I think they do both traditional cars and EVs.
They were the ones that it kind of invested in Jie Auto, right?
Yes, they're the ones who actually created a conglomerate, right? They own Volvo, Polestar, they have Zeekr, they have different brands. So the number 5 is Honda. Honda had a sales of 80,000 cars, so that's about less than a quarter of BYD sales.
Yeah.
But what is really worrying is that it was declining by 26% year on year. I actually spoke with some people who in the very early days of establishing a joint venture of Honda in Guangzhou, because back then when China first opened its auto market, all these foreign players needed to establish joint ventures. So it's a government way to force them to transfer down some technology. And at that time, I think many people were saying that, okay, of course, I think 20 years ago when you go to China, it's an emerging market. And you don't trust the rules and you have to drink a lot. But I think they managed to actually take this up, but also at the same time, it created a whole market in China.
But it's a very competitive market in China, right? So just looking at this list alone, there are so many players.
When you go to number 10, it's BMW, 600,000 cars. I mean, BMW at one point of time was, I mean, like in Singapore, right? I mean, when you're middle class, when you're a little bit sort of affluent, you won't have a BMW.
Yeah, it's more of it's the bad drivers on the road, guys.
It's a bad driver on the road.
What's number 8? Cherry.
Oh, Cherry.
Oh,
that's a local Chinese.
That's a local Chinese brand, and known for producing very cheap cars. So I think they were one of the first ones to export to Southeast Asia. And when they first came, I think you can probably find news back then. Lots of people saying that the quality was really not good.
I feel like I remembered seeing a couple of like Cherry cars. They were kind of the first few, like Chinese EVs that started expanding globally?
No, they were like petrol
they were
cars.
just normal cars.
Yeah, and most of the complaints is about leaking oil. So as you can see that historically when they built petrol cars, and same as when they were building motorbikes in China. I mean, Chongqing is a large manufacturing hub. Many of the motorbike companies tried to expand into Southeast Asia about 15 years ago. They just couldn't beat the Japanese cars because quality was not as good. And also they didn't have the brand name, the trust, the distributor ecosystem, the service ecosystem.
I think it's very different now, right? Because last year in Singapore as well, BYD was the magic. We have this.
Magic is a piece of paper.
Yeah,
newspaper.
I made the piece of paper appear. That's the magic trick. BYD was the number 1 car brand that sold in Singapore last year.
Right? Yeah.
But they did actually overtake Toyota last year, and they sold about 6,000 units. Nothing compared to China, but cars in Singapore, so it's just like that.
It's so interesting to think that the top brand in selling cars in Singapore only sells 6,000, but in China they sell like 3 million.
I think the bottom brand in China also can sell more than 6,000.
Yeah. Go and find if a brand sells 6,000.
Scroll all the way down.
How would that rank? 6,000. That would be hell. I have no idea about this brand. Yeah.
89.
Number 89. Okay.
Number 89 in China.
But that's the scale of the market, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. They have like 100, more than 100.
Yeah, they have almost 100 brands. So that's how competitive the market. And
that's how big the market is, I think.
That's how. Yes.
Because I remember like more than 10 years ago, I was having a discussion with a friend saying that we really don't have that many different car models in Singapore, especially at the mass market. Occasionally these days, I still see a few. Do you know a brand called Skoda? A Czech brand which was bought by Volkswagen. So if you drive inside, if the interior design itself is exactly Volkswagen, but it's a different brand. And in China, at some point, it was so common. And in Singapore, I don't know, I see like one or two here and there.
I see a lot of BYDs in Singapore these days though, like really. I think because the price point is quite reasonable and it's a good car. I'm assuming it's a good car if people are buying it.
They have like 6-7 different models in Singapore now. Yeah. And I drive, right? So on the road, I noticed you see more and more BYD cars like every month.
Yeah. So speaking about BYD, right? I think we also mentioned this in the Jiye Auto episode. BYD is actually, they produce the buses now that in NTU. So NTU hire BYD buses. So they changed it. Yeah. Now it's all electric.
Usually buses are Mercedes, right? Usually Merc or BM.
Or Volvo or something because it's a heavy duty vehicle and you need a pretty good engineering to make sure that they're actually reliable. Yeah.
So that's why BYD. But I guess when you go to a mall in China, you can kind of see how competitive it is as well, right? So Jangan, you were in China recently. We all were in China recently.
But I actually went to a mall in Shanghai. That's Chaji.
So Xiaopeng.
That was me, yeah.
Yeah. Xiaopeng is also quite popular.
There's a KFC which has a very, very, very good egg tart. Yeah, this is like the first mall I visited in China for the last 3-4 years that actually has a crowd.
That's true.
It's super crowded.
Because when I'm looking at the video, it's very different from when we were actually walking around the malls in Shanghai. So, okay, I don't know if because we were there on a weekday or like it wasn't a weekend, but most of the malls there's like 1-2 people. And that's it.
I do think that the malls that you went to are not the malls which are actually right next to the communities, right next to the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
These are the malls people need to make effort to go. So this is XPeng, and of course one of the 3 startups. You start to see them in Singapore as well?
Yeah, I've started to see them in Singapore as well.
So our colleague Enzo in Beijing, he drives the XPeng. I rode his car a few times. The car was really good. His driving was not. And he always forgets to wash his car. So he said it's in Beijing, it's dusty anyway, so what's the point?
What about the car was good though?
Huh?
What about
the car was, I think it was comfortable and it has like a full view sort of, what do you call that?
The sky roof?
The sky roof, yeah.
Wait, but that's quite common. Like a Tesla has that as well, right?
I mean,
does BYD have that
do you
as
have that in Toyota?
I have that
drive
in
a
my
Volvo.
Merc has
That's BYD. So what's interesting about this is that this is the basement next to, I think, 2 supermarkets and 1 large food court. So I'll show you a few photos of the food court. That food court is weird, super weird.
Oh, it's the one with all the panda. Then you add some photos. Yeah. All the car showrooms are in the basement, mostly in the basement.
In the basement, where you have the biggest crowd actually. So that mall is huge. On one end of the basement is Hema and the food court. So basically, I mean, 2 things which draw people, right? On the other end is Audi. It's a German supermarket which is going really popular in China. That's in between is all the car showrooms.
That's very interesting because how do you say? A couple years back, having a car showroom in a mall is not the norm, right? Traditionally, there will be pop-ups and all, but having a car brand owning their own retail space in a mall, it's not something that used to be very common. And then I think the first person that did it was kind of Tesla because they used like a direct distribution. And now, like you said, right, the whole basement besides the supermarket and the food court is just car showrooms. So why do you think these brands have started kind of shifting their business model?
The new car players, right? I mean, especially those who started with EV who do not have the legacy of all these dealerships and stuff. And when they look at Tesla doing that, and they thought about what's the quickest way for them to build brand awareness, to show their cars to maximum amount of people. Because if you look at the traditional relationship that car manufacturers with consumers is that they appoint dealers. Car manufacturers will invest in marketing and together with dealers, they'll find ways to bring people into the showroom. But showrooms are typically not in the places that I usually go to.
No, they're usually like very, very far.
So in Singapore, the showrooms are usually at Alexandra Road, right? Which is quite inaccessible. I mean, you have to travel there specifically. Only car brands that in malls in Singapore are actually BYD and Tesla, right?
Yeah, so far the only two I've seen are BYD and Tesla. But it's interesting, right? Because obviously, unit economics-wise, it's a very different model. And most of the time, sales don't happen directly at these retail stores.
I don't think so, because with the mall, you can't really go and do a test drive, right? I mean, you can't technically take the car out of the mall and go for a ride. So for that, you probably still need to go to a physical location. But what you see interesting is that these guys are separating the functions of customer acquisition to conversion. Right? I mean, traditionally that happens at one place. You know, in China, dealers are called 4S stores, like sales, service, whatever. There's 4S there. So basically, it's one stop, right? I mean, covers everything. But now I think sales and acquisition happens at one place, which is in a shopping mall, which is where you have the highest traffic.
I think one interesting thing is obviously for a lot of these more traditional car brands, right? If they were to do like, let's say, a pop-up in the mall, or if they were to have a dealership, they would have to see the conversion kind of directly translate to sales. Whereas if you just have a showroom or you just have a retail space in a mall, obviously it doesn't always directly translate to sales immediately, right? Because customers will come and go, customers will come and ask questions, and then of course they will have to arrange a test drive which happens somewhere else. And for the case of like Tesla and all, you can actually purchase the car online. So how do you think brands are kind of like, because then obviously the KPIs that you use to track how successful this store is would differ from that of a traditional dealership?
Yes, a couple of things. I actually spoke with a friend who used to work for a large European car brand in China, saying that for them, when they look at everybody else who started doing this, every local player, right, in China started doing this like permanent stores in malls, and they try to do that as well. But they encountered one block is they can't allocate the rent as a marketing cost. So if you look at, I think some of the pop-up stores that you see in Singapore, right, road shows and stuff, I mean, this is like, temporary marketing cost instead of event.
You can technically still put it under the marketing dollars, right?
Yeah. So for him, he said, I mean, I couldn't convince the CFO to allocate this as marketing. Then once you look at it as a retail space, then you start doing the calculations of, does it make sense from
how much sales am I getting from this,
Yeah, because the spaces in malls would cost more than a showroom, right? I think you have done some search.
I think, it's about 2 to 5, it could be 2 to 5 times more. Obviously, it depends on the space, I guess. And all.
So then if you account this in a way that you have to generate profit per square foot, then it's, I mean, of course, you look at it and say, okay, more is not the best way to do it. Actually, in a way, this is similar to how we look at Luckin, because Luckin minimized,
like minimizing, not really minimizing store space, right? But I would say maybe in terms of customer acquisition.
In terms of customer acquisition, and in terms of the function of that space that they have in the malls is different, right? Because traditionally cafes would say that, okay, I have space in the mall. The mall is where I do the customer acquisition, I serve the customers, I have the collect the cash and stuff. Luckin was saying that, okay, the space in the mall is just a fulfillment center. So in a way, if you look at it previously, the dealer showrooms, I mean, they're not that big, right? And they just show like 2 or 3 cars, have someone there explaining to you, and it's a place for them to tell the customer, hey, we have this discount and stuff, right?
It's kind of funny. It's kind of the opposite. For Luckin, it's that instead of having such a big, like, nice retail space to attract customers, they just use their stores as like a fulfillment center. Whereas for cars, it's more of the other way around, right? They're going into the retail space to have a nice space. You have like a small team of staff there, and then place things for customers to come and try. Even BYD has like a cafe, right, in Singapore.
They actually have 4 cafes, but what I'm thinking is, isn't it like a significant amount of extra cost? Because like even with the retail space, they still need to have the traditional showrooms, right, at Alexandra Road, which BYD actually has.
Yeah, so they have a showroom as well.
Is it just to draw in crowd, and does it really convert to actual people buying?
Every cost you do, right? I mean, it's not really about the cost per se, because people always say that, okay, oh yeah, I spent so much on this and so much on that. But at the end of the day, you look at, okay, what is the spend? I mean, what's the purpose of the spend, and how does it justify? Obviously, well, this is me guessing, right? I have not spoken with them about this, but I would think that, I mean, having a cafe there And if you look at the cafe there, they don't serve traditional sort of ethnic food, but it's also more sort of modern business.
I'm pretty sure it's pasta.
Yes, I mean, it's easy to cook. It doesn't require lots of expertise. And also at the same time, it gets the crowd to stay in the showroom a bit longer. Because traditionally, even if you want to buy a car, we go to the showroom, we talk to the person, and after like half a minute, if you're embarrassed asking too many questions, and the guy is pushing me to buy the car, and I want to disengage from this discussion. So I do think that the cafe will help people stay there longer.
So do you think the cafe, in a way, kind of offsets a little bit of the cost?
No, I don't think it offsets
Like
the
it
cost.
justifies a little bit of why they want
I
to
don't
make
think you will
malls.
earn it back, but I feel like it creates a more comfortable experience for your consumers.
So it's all about it's all
Think-
about customer experience.
Think about that. The person who might want to buy a car but doesn't want to talk to the salesperson. Sit in a cafe, observe, see how other customers engage with the salesperson. So you can think about that person sitting in a cafe the same as somebody like, at home watching live stream from a car showroom.
I guess that's why live streaming cars also works, right? Because sometimes people want to see, but they also don't want to be asking too many questions. They don't want to have a salesperson kind of like following them around and being...
A friend of ours used to sell on live selling in Malaysia, physical goods, and he has transitioned into selling cars and is doing really well because, I mean, consumers need time to engage with the salespeople to ask more questions, but they feel pressurized when they're actually physically in the showroom.
That's true.
So cafe makes it a more relaxed environment for people. I mean, that's also what traditional car dealerships do.
They create a comfortable, like, they have
Yeah,
seats, they have
very,
coffee
very
for
nice
you.
couch and give you a coffee. And Neil says, I was planning to like ask 2 questions and leave. Now I have to finish my coffee, and it's hot. It takes a while to finish it.
That's true. Then you have to stay there longer.
Should we go back to the mall?
Yes, you can go.
So this is BYD, different models, as you can see. This is like pop-up stores, right? It's really, really simple.
How much is a BYD?
In China, depends. The cheapest would be probably around 100k RMB, 15k USD. Oh, that was me.
15K.
Oh, this is GA. That's still there.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, they still have a... Wait, okay, look at the video. They kind of cordoned off the entrance to the GA Auto.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are lacking a little concept, so GA Auto, we do have a podcast episode about this. If you guys want more information, you can check it out in the show notes below. Essentially, they were a Chinese EV who recently kind of went bust, right? And then they had live streamers who were live streaming the sales of the cars. For GA, and who were breaking down mid-live stream. So it kind of became quite a big thing in China.
So this is their showroom, and of course nobody's there. And I'm not sure whether they have prepared the rain or whatever. So the cars are still there, gathering dust. Somebody has put a few characters on a car. I mean, on a dust. You can write on a dust, right? Saying that, hey, Xia Yiping, who is the CEO, please return me the money. So it's still there. They didn't bother to. I mean, nobody bothered.
So that's
to.
what's written on the dust.
Yes, but this is their vision, right? So GA is smart, so experience the global leading high-level smart driving. The main text, GA is a high-end smart car robotic brand based on the advanced Baidu AI technologies as well as Geely's ecosystem.
So those were the two kind of parent investors.
You can see the company had a very big ambition, but for whatever reason didn't work out. Yes?
Yes,
It's
so they
cordoned-
kind of cordoned off
It's
the
cordoned
whole
off.
shop area.
Pricing is still there, and it costs about 200,000 for the basic model, and about 300, that would be 28,000
it's
USD. Yeah.
more expensive than a BYD. Well, at least the
It's-
cheapest model of a BYD.
It's aimed to be sort of medium and medium above. So I was showing people around, and you can see actually people walking around. The new model, still GA.
Miniso.
There's Miniso. And this is the thing about Miniso and everywhere is like you see lots of everywhere in China.
You see a lot of it in Singapore, in a lot of places. The place I was most surprised to find a Miniso was when I was in Germany last year.
Then you move a little bit. The next door is Buick.
The Chinese?
No, this is General Motors.
Oh.
And yeah. See, that's the thing I was talking about. So if you look at General Motors, and they actually have lots of sub brands. So they established a joint venture in Shanghai that produces, I think, this brand Buick, and another brand called Cadillac. You might have heard of it.
Cadillac?
Yes, I think there used to be some taxis in Singapore of that brand, right?
Yeah.
Sabrina hasn't heard of it.
I know. It's in the Bruno Mars song.
Oh, okay.
It's a very old car, no?
It's a very old brand.
Old model,
Yes.
like the very classic, like the squarish
So
car.
Cadillac is Chinese?
No, it's GM, General Motors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the strategy of many of these car manufacturers is that when they go to a market, they choose which brands to use in that market. And historically, you have a lot of stories of, wrong choices of brands.
Oh, hot mess.
Yeah, it's not related to cars, but you see they sell lots of alcohol and daily necessities.
Is that a dollar shop?
Not exactly. This is still branded stuff. And there's Audi.
Audi. So
The
that's the supermarket.
German.
Yeah, doing super well in China now. So you see, these guys are saying that, okay, this car is only 104K RMB, so that works out to be 14K USD.
You were there around like the Lunar New Year period, right? Which is why
That was before that. Yeah.
around there's so many red decorations around.
Oh, this is Volkswagen. And
Is
there's
this Toyota?
This is Toyota. Just now.
So even traditional brands have started kind of opening retail spaces in malls in China.
It is, look at the price.
130,
4K.
4K.
Less than 20K. Coming from a Singapore perspective, look at the car prices.
Our COE
Oh
is
yeah, our
way
COE
more.
is not even like you convert that to Singapore dollars. That's our COE.
COE stands for Certificate of Entitlement. In Singapore, in order to own a car,
It's
you need
a
to.
cert. You need to.
It's
own
not. It's not even piece of. You don't have piece of paper. It's entry in the registry. Yeah.
Essentially, it's registering to own a car.
Yes.
You have to bid for this
Yes.
registering.
Yes. Smart. That's German as well. Yeah.
The German
Yeah.
normal, like traditional car or EV?
I think they have EV as well. I think it's pretty hard for you to operate in China without having the EV portfolio. And of course, they didn't manage to rent this out, so they have all these machines.
I love these machines.
Which brand is this?
On
Yeah, Omo is one of the new brands.
It's interesting. It's such a big market, and there's really so many brands popping up. So how do these brands actually differentiate?
Different ways. You can see that some of them are using price, some of them are.
Collaboration.
MG is now owned by the state-owned Shanghai, I think, Motor Group. Yeah. Oh, do you see that car, that MPV there?
Yeah.
There's a lady inside.
Oh.
What is she doing?
She's live streaming.
She's
Live streaming.
She's basically explaining. So I think about that. It actually makes sense, right? So look at this guy's probably not doing much.
Actually, this is something we discussed about live streaming when you're in a retail store, right? So if you're in a store and it's empty, or you can only talk to one person at a time, but if you do a live stream, you're answering multiple questions. So it's actually, I think it's very effective for cars because it's a big ticket purchase. People will have a lot of questions.
Yeah. They want to spend more time looking at it again and again. So
Was she hired by the brand, or is she just like a live streamer?
I think she's hired by the brand. But there are instances in places where you can have a third party. But I don't think these guys do it. This is Tesla and Zeekr. So this Zeekr is top selling. It's one of the top selling brands. Yeah.
It really is the whole basement of the mall.
And it's a very weird robot here. And
This robot is not by XP. Is it?
I don't know. I think it's by the mall operator. So I don't know why it is there.
Was she explaining thing, or she's just moving?
I think when you have a conversation with them. So so you see, once you are out of the street, you see all the F&B and stuff. This mall is actually pretty decent crowd, and they have like so many different car brands there.
It's a huge mall, and there's a whole area in the mall where it's just. I guess this is good for someone. If you don't know, like, you just want to go and have a look. You can look at a bunch of brands, look at the different models and all.
And if you want to book for a test drive, you can still go to the site where you can do a test drive. But even think about it in the past, when you have to do a test drive, you have to go to different places, right?
Yeah.
But at least there's one place you can go and check out different cars.
Check out everything.
And if you're still not sure, which is most likely the case, and you can sort of go and watch a bit of live stream and book a test drive. And the whole experience becomes more natural. Right? It's just the psychology of the consumers. And for the car manufacturers, there's a way for them to look at, the life cycle of customers. How do you do the awareness, conversion kind of stuff?
So it's interesting because currently the car market, or at least the way you do retail for the car market in China, is so different, right? But a lot of these Chinese EV brands are also trying to go global. So obviously, like we mentioned earlier in the video, BYD is the top selling car in Singapore. I think they're doing well in a lot of other countries as well, right? Do you see this kind of retail model translating the same outside of China, or do you think it's something that is quite unique to China?
I think at the end of the day, it's not really okay. Become a new dogma, right? You have to do the retail insurance. It's a way to look at cost, right? What is allocated as customer acquisition cost? What is allocated as, conversion cost and and how do you look at the whole process? So in certain places, I mean, it makes more sense to work with dealers to have showrooms. In certain places, it might be worth to work more with e-commerce players. So I think it's a way to look at, okay, this is how the customer life cycle is, and this is how I intend to sort of maximize the ROI on whatever money I have for this market.
So we've been seeing a lot of Chinese EVs in Southeast Asia as well, right? I think that's like a whole other topic. So if you guys are interested, we are going to be doing a specific episode on EVs in Southeast Asia. So if you guys have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments and then maybe we'll address them in the video.
Maybe. Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Impulso podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe to the channel for more updates on new retail, EVs, and the digital economy. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.